by the way.
The first problem on your homework says the information for two pay-as-you-go cell phone companies is given. So underneath you see two different boxes. One box is for the on-call company. The other box is for talk time. So we're going to figure out, question A, what is the unit rate in dollars per hour for each company? If you remember from last week, this is what we're looking for to get started. Per hour. That means I need 1 hour for each company. I'm going to set up my two ratios. I'm going to say 1 hour. I do not know how much it's going to cost. That's what we're trying to figure out. I'm going to do on call on this side. And then I'm going to do talk time on this side. So for on call, I'm going to look back up at the problem and I'm going to see what information it gives me. It says 3.5 hours costs $10. So now I'm going to use that information and put it next to this ratio or fraction that I already have. We also said in our last video that we want these labels to match. So if hours is on the bottom, it still stays on the bottom, and dollars still stays on the top. So I'm going to go ahead and write hours. And when I look back up here, it said 3.5. So I'm going to put 3.5. Dollars goes on the top because that's what was originally there. And when you look at your question, it says $10. To solve this problem, we are going to focus on just this part of what we created. If you remember, I said this line doesn't always just mean a fraction. It also means divide. So I'm going to set this up. The top number is going to go first, 10, divided by 3.5. To set this problem up, this is what you would do. I'm going to move all this up a little bit so I have more room. The first number goes in the box. The second number goes outside the box. We don't like to divide by decimals, so I need to move this decimal so that it turns into 35, not just 3.5. So if I move this decimal point over 1, I have to put a decimal point in this number and move it over 1. That's now going to create the number 100. So for you, you need to go ahead and divide 35 into 100. It should go, I think about 2 times. So I'm going to put 2. 2 times 35 is 70. If I subtract that, I get 30. I didn't get a 0 remainder, so I'm going to put in my decimal, add a 0, and keep dividing. Before I do anything else, though, I am going to move this decimal up into my answer. Now I'm going to try and divide 35 into 300. If I think about this for a minute, I'm going to try 8. On some scrap paper, I'm going to try and figure out what that equals. It's 280. When I subtract that, I get 20. I still don't have 0 as a remainder, so I'm going to add another 0 and try to keep dividing. 35 can go into 200 5 times, and that equals 175. When you subtract, you get 25. It looks like this is going to keep going on forever, so I am just going to go with this as my best answer for right now. On Call is the company we were looking at, and we're going to say it costs $2.85. I'm going to scoot everything back down so I can see the problem. Now I'm going to put that On Call is $2.85. And this is per hour. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use the information for talk time. I'm going to start out with the beginning fraction. We want to figure out 1 hour, how much it costs. I don't know how much it costs, but I can look back up in my problem and get the information. I know it's half an hour and $1.25. So I'm going to put that in the same spot that I did before. Half hour, I know, is $1.25. Now we said before that you can take that fraction that you just made and really it means divide. So you can do $1.25 divided by 1/2, which is a fraction. We don't really divide fractions. What do? We turn it into a multiply question and we flip the number we're dividing by. So I'm going to keep $1.25. I'm going to multiply it by, instead now I want the opposite, flip it upside down. I also need to make $1.25 a fraction, so I'm going to put a 1 under it. If you have $1.25 times 2, that means you have $2.50. And 1 times 1 is just 1. So for talk time, their rate is $2.50 per hour. Question B just asks which company has the best deal. And if you remember in class on Friday, we focused on this with batteries. The best deal is the one that costs the least amount per hour. So you already have that from answer A. You can now decide which company has the best deal. Question C says, now if you have another company that has a rate of 5 cents per minute, find that rate per hour. So we need to decide how many minutes are in 1 hour. If they tell me it costs 5 cents for 1 minute, I'm trying to figure out 1 hour. 1 hour is not the same as 1 minute. 1 hour really means 60 minutes. So for me to figure this out, I'm just going to look sideways. How can I turn 1 minute into 60 minutes? You could just multiply it by 60. So really what I want to do is multiply 5 cents times 60 to get the cost for 1 hour. You can set this up 0.05 times 60 to figure out the cost of this other company for 1 hour of cell phone time. I'm going to move to question 12 because after I did all the questions, I felt like this one might be the harder one for the rest of you guys. So look at number 12. It says we have 2 different people running. We have Terrence and we have Jesse. Terrence and Jesse are training for a race. Terrence trains at a rate of 6 miles every half hour. Jesse trains at a rate of 2 miles every 15 minutes. And the question wants us to solve what is the unit rate in miles per hour. So this tells us right now what goes on the bottom. Hours go on the bottom. So let's set this up. Terrence is going to have, we're trying to figure out 1 hour, and we don't know how many miles. But we do know from looking back in the question, his rate is 6 miles, half an hour of time. So I'm going to put 6 miles on top because that's what was already on top. I'm going to put half an hour on bottom because, again, that's what was on the bottom of the first one. Now I am going to take this part of the question that I created. It's really a dividing problem. I'm going to divide it out and see what I get. 6 divided by 1/2. Remember, we're not really going to divide fractions. We're going to multiply them. So the question I want to solve is 6 times 2 over 1. I'm going to make the 6 a fraction by putting a 1 under it. 6 times 2 is 12. So that means Terrence's rate is 12 miles per hour. Now I'm going to look at Jesse. We still are going to start with the same thing. 1 hour. I don't know how many miles he's going to run. The question tells me, though, that right now Jesse is running at 2 miles for 15 minutes. So I'm going to put miles on top. And his time is 15 minutes. We need to pay close attention to this. This says hours and this says minutes. Those are not the same units. So I'm going to draw a picture. This is 1 whole hour. 15 minutes is when the minute hand is on the 3. It would look like this. So this guy is only going to do this much of an hour. If you think about what fraction that might represent, it's 1 out of 4. So instead of me saying 15 minutes, I'm going to make a new question that says 2 miles, 1/4 hour. Now I can solve this problem the same way I just did for Terrence. I'm going to put 2 first, then divide by 1/4. Again, we don't really want to divide fractions, so I'm going to say 2 times, and then I'm going to flip this fraction upside down, 4 over 1. The 2 needs to be a fraction, so I'm going to put a 1 under it. 2 times 4 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. Now I know that Jesse runs 8 miles per hour. I'm going to write Jesse's on the line, 8 miles per hour. Part B of question 12 now asks you to look at how long it would take the person to run 50 miles. So you still know that Terrence runs 12 miles in 1 hour. We want him to go 50 miles. And we figure out the time. To figure out this new quantity, what I'm going to do is cross multiply 50 times 1. 50 times 1 is 50. And then this other number that's left over, 12, I'm going to divide it into my answer. So I'm going to put 50 in the box and 12 outside the box. When I divide that, 12 goes into 50 4 times. That's 48. I have 2 extras left over. I can't just say it takes the guy 4 hours, so I'm going to put a 0 and drop it down. Now I have 20. 12 goes into 20 1 time. So I'm going to subtract 12. That's 8. I'm going to add another 0 and drop it down. 12 can go into 80 6 times. That's 72. When you subtract, you get 8 again. Now, if you keep adding a 0, you're going to keep getting 80. So that means the 6 is going to repeat. Now I know how long it's going to take Terrence to run 50 miles. It should take him, Terrence is going to need 4.16 repeating hours. You would set this up the same way for Jesse. Earlier we said Jesse runs 8 miles in 1 hour. I'm trying to figure out how long it takes him to run 50